Welcome to Queenmaker. This is a spirit-led conversation space for women who lead, create, and influence with intention. I'm Natasha Hilsman, and here we explore wisdom and strategy, mentorship and legacy, and what it truly means to lead with presence, clarity, and soul. Queenmaker was created for women who are done rushing, done shrinking, and ready to be visible without abandoning themselves. Because queens are not born, they are made. So wherever you're listening from, take a breath, settle into yourself. You're in the right place. Queens have never ruled alone. Across history, queens led by building strategic alliances to protect her people. She mobilized a nation through collective leadership and led with the belief that strength comes from working together. Leadership has never been a solo act. It has always been about knowing who to stand with. Because a queen does not lose her power by partnering, she expands her power. And in leadership today, we call that allyship. For me, allyship looks like this. Someone who uses their awareness, influence, and position to actively support, advocate for, and create access for others, especially in spaces where those individuals may not be equally seen, heard, or represented. That hasn't been my experience everywhere, but I have experienced what it looks like when it's done well. When a man knows how to stand beside a woman without needing to stand in front of her, and uses his leadership in a way that changes outcomes. And this conversation is personal for me because of that. So today, I'm sitting down with Peter Odenwald to talk about what allyship actually looks like in real leadership with real people, from the position of a queen and the partner who knows how to stand beside her. So, Peter, welcome to the Queenmaker podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I didn't know if you were going to say yes or not, though. But so we're talking about allyship today. But before we get into it, we might want to explain how we ended up being here. Okay. Because I always talk about context on this podcast. So for people listening, I want them to know that we worked together for it was like 9 years or something like that. Okay, so what was happening was we worked at this place together, and Peter was the executive leader, and I was his HR business partner. And so we were partners in crime, not literally crime. Well, wait a minute.
On occasion.
Okay, occasionally crime. We didn't get caught. Partners in crime. And we did a lot of things together, a lot of strategic type things. The business expanded. We did a lot of things together. And so that is one of the reasons why I wanted you to be, part of this podcast. Because when I thought about the allyship, you were the person I thought about.
Well, Thank you.
Yeah, and it's true. So before we get into everything more broadly, how would you describe, our working relationship and, what made that work?
Well, I think what made it work for me, Natasha, was you brought expertise and often levity to really complex situations that involve personnel, that involve fairness, and you were a good sounding board for me and somebody that over time I came to trust completely, that when I had an issue and it was in your domain, I would just call you and say, right, what are we going to do?
That's right. Or I think I would say, we're going to fix your problems. These are your problems.
Yeah, they were always my people.
That's right,
and
your
my
people and your problems. I didn't have
right.
any problems as an HR person. You had lots of problems. Okay, there you go.
Well, that's what happens when there's 2,000 people under you.
So what do you think stood out? Because, I was sitting here thinking the other day, man, we did so much stuff. Oh, my. Yeah, we got a lot of things done. We made mistakes, too,
Absolutely.
I think we did. And talking about allyship and partnership, why do you think, or what stood out to you about how we partnered in key moments?
Well, for me, I think one of the most important features of what made us work so well together was that we trusted each other. We knew we had each other's backs in pretty difficult situations, and some not so difficult.
Right.
When we were speaking to whomever, we knew that we were speaking as one.
Right.
And we never had to like circle back and say, why did you say that?
Right,
Or
right.
what did you mean by
Right.
that? And you know, that took time to develop,
Yes.
but I think we also intentionally spoke about those things. So for example, if it was a difficult conversation that I was going to have or you were going to have with somebody on my team, we would talk about what are the message that we need to get across. And we knew that that message would be the same message and not nuanced in a way that would lead somebody potentially to the wrong conclusion.
Yeah. I remember that. You know, in our work, we did a lot of, I guess we would consider mergers and acquisitions. We'll just call it that.
Right.
And so I just remember going to these spaces, and you would always get there first because you were always early. I wasn't late. I was right on time. Yeah, okay, maybe a little bit. But we would show up to these places, and it was like, I think because we were so in sync, you know, a lot of those things did work out very, very well. Because, you know, you think about an executive leader and the HR person, like there's going to be some contrast and a little bit of, I don't know what you want to call it. Not conflict, but, you know, maybe positive conflict, but it always doesn't go very smooth in these situations.
Well, I think it's important that people understand that, again, early on, it was very intentional.
Right.
We would talk about it sort of like, what is the game plan before we walk in? And 4 years into it, we didn't have to do that as much.
Yes.
And that was kind of important that people understand that, because that was the most trying times.
Right.
Those were the deep, dark days of COVID when nobody knew that it was a common cold, and there was truly panic across the world at that point.
Right, it was. Yeah, and we were leaning in. You leaned in a lot more during that time. I remember you doing that. So thinking back earlier in your career, and if you want to talk to us a little bit about your early leadership career, how did you approach leading women? So first of all, did you lead women earlier on in your career?
Well, that's a good question. So my career has always been in healthcare, going all the way back to 1993.
Wow.
So, and at that time, and it really didn't change over the course of time, the workforce was 86% women.
Right.
So I never knew any difference in the workforce. And I also think that for me personally, one of the things that I always tried to do was just be my authentic self.
Right.
I never tried to outsmart the situation because I don't think I'm smart enough to do that, first of all. But also, I think people can tell instantly if somebody's being authentic and speaking from their truth, right or wrong, but from their point of truth. And it's easy to destroy your credibility. And when you're leading lots of people, or even a few people, that's a critical element.
Were you always authentic? Where did you learn that, to be authentic? Did you see that in someone else, or
probably learned it repeating 8th grade?
Okay. Oh, God. Okay.
Now, you know, I'm the oldest of 6 boys.
Okay.
Girls were not part of our family dynamic. Our mom was obviously a very strong woman.
And very patient, apparently.
Well, she wasn't afraid to throw down. But, you know, I think it's just one of the characteristics I bring. But I also studied leadership a lot. Once I graduated college, I read voraciously about all different types of leaders. And one of the themes that emerged, good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter, is that these incredible leaders are really true to themselves.
Right.
They don't try to be somebody they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that do often fail.
Right.
Or have a colossal misstep
Mm-hmm.
that is detrimental to their career.
Yeah.
So I think that, maybe I absorbed that
Okay.
through all those readings, but it was also my nature.
Mm-hmm. And in healthcare, you have lots of opportunities, like you said, to lead women. It's not like you have to create a team of women. They're naturally in that space.
Right.
And more naturally, you're the odd person out being a man in healthcare.
Often
That's
I
right.
was.
It's like the women rule.
Yeah.
So when did you recognize leadership experiences differ for women, or do you even agree with that?
So that that's interesting. I do think the experiences are different, but from my perspective, as a leader and a follower, I don't think they're different.
Okay.
Because, as you know, we
Yes.
worked for a woman at the place we worked for, very
Yes.
smart, very successful.
Yes.
And then, obviously, I was in a role where I led women, too. Again, I didn't try to make it different because I don't think there is a difference. Now, I know there are different experiences, but to try it, from my perspective, to try to cater to those enhances the differences instead of treating it as it's not different.
Okay.
Now, we made exceptions when, not from a leadership perspective, but there are different life experiences.
Right.
But I never really looked at it different.
Yeah.
And it was, we sort of chatted about
talked about
this.
it.
This whole concept of allyship
Yeah.
is a little bit uncomfortable for me
Right.
because I don't see the world that way.
Okay.
And I never thought of myself as a person who was doing anything different
Right.
for women or people of color or anything. I was just being me and doing the best I could.
Right.
And sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah. But did you ever, because I remember coming in your office like I used to all the time, and just trying to explain something. We'd be in a meeting and someone would say something or do something or act a certain way. And I come in your office and you're like, what was that about? And if it was a woman, sometimes I would have to explain from her perspective, like what just happened. And it wasn't because I didn't think we both saw the same thing, but there were some times that a woman was treated a certain way, or the message that she was given, or, whatever was perceived differently. And I feel like that you did recognize those things.
Well, I give you a lot of credit and others. My daughters, I have two daughters and a son in particular, because the experiences you bring through your personal life are the context you opened with as to how you see and hear things.
Yeah.
And the exact same words in the same statement can mean two very different things to different people. And often at times you would help me at least slow down to recognize that there's a different perspective on the words that were said or the statement that was made. And that was important because that did make me a better leader. I think it also strengthened our partnership.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that the people that saw us interact on a day-to-day basis recognized that we had a true partnership.
Right.
And if you look at like an organizational structure, we weren't under or aligned with each other.
Yes.
We were beside each
That's
other.
Right.
And I don't know. I think if people were to reflect back on that, they may not know
They
that.
don't even
It may
know.
not have ever entered their mind because
Right.
that's not how we operate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was very interesting, especially thinking, and that was a long time too. So we had to
Yes.
figure that out. So I understand how because we talked about this. You weren't totally on board with the word allyship. And you came up with some. I'm going to ask you about your definition of allyship later on now. But you came up with some kind of definition. I'm like, where did you get that from? Definitions.com?
Merriam-Webster.
Like, I have no idea. That wasn't my definition of allyship. But leading women, and these are, and just for also context, you had like you had executive leaders under you. So they
Yes.
weren't, not trying to put down anybody who was lower
No.
level, but there's certain expectations of an executive leader and to manage executive leaders. So did you observe any patterns though of that you felt like that women had in leadership? Meaning, maybe you would approach something because you had male leaders too,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like you didn't have male leaders.
Right.
But was there anything that you observed from the woman in leadership perspective that stood out to you?
I think in difficult situations, sometimes people can act emotionally.
Right.
And not all women, but many, sometimes that's expressed through crying, whether it be frustration or joy or whatever.
Right.
And one of the things that you actually gave me as a phrase that I still use today was people express their emotions differently. It's okay.
That's right.
It doesn't make you lesser. It doesn't make you more. It's just okay. And I tried to make sure that people understood that I wasn't making a judgment because they were crying.
Right.
And if you remember, I used to keep a box of
I was
tissues
like,
on my
thinking about
desk.
that. You had lots of box of tissues.
And I would, if it was a hard conversation and people would, maybe
Right.
get weepy-eyed, I would give them the tissues,
Yeah.
but keep going.
That's right, you would.
I wouldn't
Right.
stop. I
Yeah.
wouldn't let that be
Yeah.
an issue.
Right.
And that may sound a little bullish, but I do believe if it were a man that
Right.
was there
Yeah.
that was maybe acting out differently
Right.
through anger, I would keep going.
Yeah,
I
you
wouldn't
would.
stop. So there's no difference in my view.
Yeah, that tissue box used to be right front, right and center.
Took
So
a
you wouldn't
lot
have
of
to
heat
reach
for
it. You're
that.
like, boom, put it on there. And
Yeah.
you know what? And a lot of people would use the tissue. They would use the tissue and keep on going. Like
That's
it
right.
wasn't. It wasn't like I have to run out of the room and go get a tissue. Like
No.
you're just like, hey, So I want to talk to you about this too, because you did lead women of color. We've had this conversation before, and I think that I understand what you're saying about the how you advocate for women and be an ally. You're not really into that word or whatever, but there are times where you did have to advocate or explain something or something for women because they were your leaders, but you also have women of color. What can you share about your experience with that?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I had to do, and this wasn't a conscious thing, but
Right.
it was brought to my attention through work
Yeah.
on committees, was recognizing there was a difference. And over my career, I did work for men.
Right.
I worked for men who also had a problem hearing women and could not work with
Okay.
women, both in a direct employment relationship and across the table in a negotiating situation. So I had to appreciate there was a difference.
Right.
And even though I didn't fully understand it and appreciate the experiences, I did work hard to make sure that there was a space for that
Right.
difference to at least be part of whatever was happening. And I don't like all these nebulous terms.
Right. Yeah.
But the reality was, I used to do certain types of counseling privately, one-on-one. Then as society got really litigious,
Yes.
I would always want somebody in the room. Or if I happened to have a difficult conversation where somebody wasn't in the room, I would leave my door halfway
Okay.
open.
Right.
And you remember Lisa
Yes,
sat just
that's
outside.
right, I do.
And I would be like, you have to be
That's
here
right,
for
right.
this
Or I would
meeting."
sit in your room. And I have.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, I would sit in. Yeah.
So, I don't know that I know the answer to that question with specifics.
Right.
But like leading women is different than leading men, at
Yeah.
least.
Right.
So there are different contexts. I I try not to lead them differently.
Yeah.
I think the same is true for women of color.
Mm-hmm.
There was a series of talks put on called Coming to the Table.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to those, and I was one of two executives that would show up pretty regularly. The other one was of color, interestingly. And I would listen, and people would go around the room and talk about situations that happened to them in today's time.
That's right.
Mostly by patients, which I found the most interesting, that were outrageous. Stuff that happened 100 years ago, comments, words. And I just remember being sort of gobsmacked that was still occurring today. And I can't remember the lady that led those conversations, but that really had an impact on me. And I made a point to try to attend as often as I could, because it was an incredible grounder that because I'm a white male, I don't have the context and maybe even the awareness, although I tried, of the nonsense that still occurs in today's society.
Are you comfortable with the observation as a white man that you did advocate for women of color? Or you're not? You're uncomfortable with that?
I'm not uncomfortable.
That's what they think, by the way.
Well,
there's a there because I know.
Yeah.
There are some people that you work with who believes that's exactly what you did. They don't think you did it for them because they're a woman of color or because they're a woman, but they felt like there were some things you understood some unique things when you listened, when you were learned and listened about their situation that enabled you to advocate for them. Differently.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And a simple, stupid example was one that our CEO told me was, we used to have meetings early in the morning. It's just because that's the way it was. And one day she made a comment to me about, have you ever thought of having it at like 9 or 9:30? And I said, well, why?
Right.
And she explained, mostly women are the primary caregivers at home, and they could get their kids off and get here and be on time and not miss. And that was one of those things that, that was over a decade ago. It still resonates with me. So I'm not uncomfortable being known as a person that advocated for women of color. In fact, I'm kind of proud of it.
Yeah.
But I would say I advocated for everybody.
Yeah,
white men, white women, women of color, men of color. I would advocate if they deserved it.
Right.
Not everybody deserves advocation.
Yeah.
But I met far many people that did deserve it. That did.
Right. Peter, do you remember that time when it was a season there where I feel like everybody was pregnant? Not me, okay? But it was literally because we would have a meeting in the morning. It was like the meeting started at 8:00, and literally one pregnant woman walk in. You're like, what? And how many times did people say, Peter, I'm pregnant? And like we would like have to figure out what to do with their work. And everybody, almost everyone always returned from maternity leave, which speaks to, their desire and also the support they received from the organization. And I just remember like, hey, listen, it's a pregnant parade up in here. We need to change. we have to change the time. Everybody can't make it, stay and sit for like hours and hours or whatever. Yeah.
It was interesting. And, I think it's obviously a product of the people, the age of the people.
Yeah.
But employing so many people, and in particular so many women, you really felt it.
Yeah.
Because I can remember specifically in this one location in particular, it was like 2 and 3 at a time.
That's right.
And it was like, and you wanted to make sure they had a position to come back to, and you had to figure out how to fill that. It was crazy.
Yeah, I've been there many a time where someone told you they were pregnant, like multiple twins, their 3rd, 4, 5, 6 kids, like, that
Hopefully I didn't react.
I was like, say congratulations and just breathe with me. Breathe, right? So I want to take a moment to say, if something in today's conversation spoke to you, that's not by accident. Because the work we do here at Queenmaker, it doesn't end with the episode, Behind this platform are 2 spaces created to support you. Through Wellington Hillsman Consulting, I partner with leaders in organizations. Through Well Hill Coaching and Wellness, I support individuals through coaching and wellness experiences. So whether you're leading an organization or being called to lead yourself, there is a space for you here. To connect with me, visit wellingtonhillsman.com or livewellhill.com or find me on Instagram at livewellhill. And when you do, you're continuing the work. So let's delve a little bit deeper into allyship. So again, was telling everybody your little definition from definitions.com about ally. I'm like, what kind of definition is that? I was like, that sounds something different than what I came up with. But how do you define?
I like yours better.
Oh, I like mine's better too. I was like, whoa, that is convenient theories for you, or I don't know what that was. But how do you define allyship today? What's your definition?
Oh, man. Again, you're putting this label on it, this stamp on it. I really think that people, if you accept that label and the definition you gave when in the opening comments, I really think it's leadership 101.
Okay.
It's not, you shouldn't be a different person to different people. I've never really subscribed to this idea of good leaders read individuals and mold to them. I just never have.
Okay, yeah.
But I think allyship today is as important as it ever has been. But again, in the context of being a good, well-rounded leader, you're doing that for everybody. And if you're good at it, you will have more people of color and more women around you in your executive team, which we had.
Yes.
And, you know, I take a lot of pride looking back.
Right.
When I was in the middle of it, I never thought of it this way. But looking back, we really did have a diverse group.
We did.
So
I used to have to remind you about that too, because when we would go to these different locations, I was like, Peter, look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like really, I mean, so it was there was a visual representation, which I thought was really great, because we are in healthcare and people do want to see themselves in healthcare. But then also it was from diverse backgrounds, because you did hire and promote a lot of people up to be part of your executive team. If there was like a deficit, like you had a deficit in some type of area. So it was thought leadership and diversity.
Well, I
too.
would tell you that I hired and promoted the best people for the job.
Right.
And I did find a theme in my looking back that the people that I surrounded myself with weren't the people with the best pedigree, best resume. In fact, it was just the people that worked really hard, learned, and then delivered what they were learning along the way.
Right. And you did surround yourself with, it was a lot of women you were around, and they did not back down at all. I mean, I would go in your office and you're like, what's wrong? You're like, they will wear you out. So these weren't like just compliant, like women that just said, okay, I'll do whatever you tell them. They actually knew their profession. They had opinions about things, and they would tell you if they thought that you were wrong, right? Or we should go into a different, exactly. Or we should go in a different direction. And that was common, I think.
It was. Yeah. You need strong leaders.
Yeah.
You need strong leaders. Those leaders may be women. They may be women of color. They may be men. They may be men of color.
Right.
You need strong leaders.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think I used to have a lot of discussions where I would explain to people they have the obligation as a leader to speak up. Nobody gets to be a passenger and never weigh in on topics that were often difficult. Or there was no apparent single right answer, but we had to make a decision.
Right. I do remember having those conversations, and we talked about that on one of the podcasts before about, being in the room and not speaking, or being in the room and speaking. You're there because you have expertise, and you should share that expertise.
I think it's incumbent upon the leader.
Right.
And it's incumbent upon that leader's leader to address it if they're not speaking up.
Right. Okay, so what's the difference between support and allyship in your mind?
So that's a good question. So support is, in my view, in the context of a workforce, it's making sure that somebody feels they have the tools that they need to succeed. They have the time to accomplish their job. And oftentimes that's my timeline or time frame, not theirs, because there's a difference sometimes. And support's important, but support is not allyship as defined, again, the label. But the allyship is a true partnership. And what that means for the leader, me in this case, is you have to be willing to put yourself in a position where you can be vulnerable if they don't do what they said they were going to do or what you all discussed as the game plan. And if you don't do that, you're always looking over their shoulder. You're always, micromanagement is the term that comes to mind, but you're never letting them really fully express themselves, expand their wings to the fullest extent possible. That's allyship, because there's risk in that. And one of the most difficult things, and I used to talk to other executives in particular about this, when you have a large group and a large area of responsibility, you can't do everything yourself. And you can't be the expert in everything because it's just too much. And you have to depend on people. And if you look at the most successful people, they all have great people that are around them that they've surrounded themselves with. And it doesn't mean you agree all the time. In fact, there's often vigorous debate, and that's an important component to it. But that allyship is the expectation of each other, that you have those discussions, but when you walk out of that room or that meeting, that you're sort of unified and you're going to do whatever you were discussing.
Because there shouldn't be any surprises there. I was thinking about what you were saying because, you were saying like, hey, listen, you do have expectations of the person that you are the partner to or the ally to. Because a lot of times you're in spaces speaking about this person's capability or that person getting results. And you need to know that what you're saying actually they can deliver that.
And a lot of times too, I found myself in a situation where if we happen to work in an industry where for whatever reason excuse me, degrees are important. Whether you have your college degree or your master's, it's just important. In fact, it's often a criteria. And I encouraged and supported many people to get those degrees because it wasn't even a discussion. We couldn't open the door to give them the opportunity without it. Now, whether that's right or wrong doesn't matter. It just is. It was what it was. And you're right. As an executive leader, I'm often advocating for people or promoting people in front of others that don't work with them regularly. And it's a tricky situation if that person lets you down or if you let them down. It's equally, I feel, as a leader, my responsibility to promote those people.
Yeah, just one. I was thinking about one thing. So this is a little bit. It's still on allyship, but can you talk to me about visibility for a second? What's your advice about that? So, and I'm specifically talking because a lot of the people that do watch this and listen to this podcast are people who are trying to move up in their career, or they are, maybe they are the people who are developing other people. But from the women's perspective, because you've led a lot of women, what advice do you have for women about being more visible or being visible, specifically in the workspace, if they're trying to move up? Like, what advice would you give them?
That's a great question because, the answer runs the risk of sort of broadly saying this group of folks should do something. But
Yeah.
I think a common thing that I think I've observed is there's a difference between self-promoting
Okay.
and being a braggart.
Okay.
There is a time to self-promote, meaning promote yourself,
Okay.
highlight the things that you've done and have accomplished, bang that gong. And one example is during your annual review. If you have a formal review process, you need to highlight your successes. And it's not wrong to actually speak proudly and boldly about them. And I think the same is true for the discussion we just had. I think a lot of people get discouraged because they don't speak up, because when they have, they didn't feel heard, or they didn't feel that the group went that way or something. And that's a mistake in my view. If you feel that you're not being heard, you need to do the meetings before the meetings or the meetings after the meetings where it's a smaller one-on-one environment so that you can speak with the people who maybe are more boisterous in a room, share your ideas, and then when you're back in the room, you share your own idea. Don't let them share your idea. And you have to speak up.
Right.
You can't be shy. You can't be concerned about being viewed as conceited or something, but you have to speak up. You also have to attend.
Okay.
And there's a person we know that always used to challenge us. How do you want to show up?
That's
and it
right.
would drive me crazy, but it's really a good question.
Yeah.
You have to think with intention. You know, how am I going to be present and what do I want to accomplish? So, for example, when people would go to conferences, I would always ask them, what's your game plan?
Okay.
You're not just going to have great meals and parties and meet vendors.
Right.
What's your game plan?
Yeah.
And I would challenge them to meet people that were in the same sphere, but they haven't met before, whether they're with our company or with other companies.
Okay.
And I would also challenge them to bring back something they can share with the group.
Right.
Same is true for a meeting, especially if there are executives in attendance.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you're running up, pulling on their coattail.
Yeah.
But you have to think about it.
But I think there is a culture, and again, depending on what your generation is, that if you're in the room, you're supposed to sit there and be quiet or shut. You're not supposed to, like everybody knows that STFU rule. I don't want to say that, but you're supposed to. So then when people are there, they have the opportunity. They are very visible physically, but then they kind of fade. Then you forget they're there. And so I think sometimes. Not just men, not just women, but men too. They don't know when to jump in there, so that people know that they're there and they actually have, they can give context and give expertise to the topic at hand.
Right.
But
I think it's important though. You can't just blend in to the wallpaper. And if you're uncomfortable, maybe if you have confidence in your leader, and I realize that's a big statement.
Yeah.
Many people don't. Maybe you discuss it with them. I'm going to be at this meeting. I would like to bring up this point. How would you suggest I do that or when?
Right.
And they can work with you
if
they're a good leader and create an opportunity. Maybe even look at you and say, Natasha, what's your opinion?
Right. Yeah.
Something
so it's like
that.
an assist, right?
Exactly.
And then you can dunk.
I think the key is you have to actually do it with intention.
Right.
It's not going to happen for you.
Exactly. Well, as we're wrapping up, I do have a couple more questions for you. So, what advice do you have for men on partnership? And then what advice do you have on women on partnership? And I actually switched that word from allyship to partnership.
Thank you.
You feel bad since you're that word to something. So advice to men on partnership, and I'm talking about partnering with women, and advice to women on partnership, and I'm talking about partnering with men.
Wow. Well, for the men, I would say you have to be willing to trust, and you have to be willing to share the limelight, if you will, with people. particularly the the women you're working with. And, I think often men think asking for help is a sign of weakness,
Okay.
as opposed to having enough self-awareness to say, I really don't appreciate and understand the technicalities of the law around this area, HR,
Whatever.
for
Yeah.
example, or whatever the topic is. I need help,
Right.
and ask. And I find most people are willing and flattered's not the right word,
Yeah.
but happy to help when they feel they can. And I think for women, it's really the same advice.
Okay.
Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. And I think women are better collaborators by nature.
Yeah.
And that's a very broad
Thank you.
swath. You're welcome. But they can't be shy at speaking up at the right times. And I mean, again, we're speaking with such broad brushes here. There are many, many, many women that are not shy and speak up.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean you have to come over the top
Yeah.
and show how tough you are.
Right.
And, bang it with a hammer. I would encourage people to study leadership, but not necessarily leadership for women or leadership of women or leadership for people of color.
Right.
Just general rock solid leadership stuff. The Ben Franklin rules.
Yes. Yeah.
The Thomas Jefferson stuff.
Right.
The leadership there is really just good sound principles. Now, that was a time in history where there were issues and they were wrong and all that. But there's also newer leadership principles.
Yeah.
I also believe that one of the things that I find frustrating personally and that I think people get stuck with is not everybody has to agree on every decision, but they do have to agree to do their best. And as a leader, you can't be too proud to say, guys, this was a bad call. We got to reverse course and fix it.
Yeah.
People will respect that more. Now, you can't do that a lot.
All the time.
But people will respect that more than somebody who has made a bad decision and continues to force it through.
Right. And I think for me, that's one thing I do remember you, because I never really ever heard anybody come out and admit sometimes when something was a bad deal or a bad decision, and it didn't, and it took the weight off of, it wasn't like I'm going to blame this person, but we were all in agreement with things that were known or unknown, and it was just, sometimes it's just a bad deal. So that's important. Okay, so I have some rapid fire questions for you. Okay. This is the partnership edition, since you don't like the word ally. So here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing men get wrong about allyship.
That depending on others is somehow a weakness.
Okay. What should a woman look for in an ally?
Somebody with great hair.
I
I think you need to look for somebody that is self-aware and out for the good of the organization and others versus themselves. That's hard to determine. Sometimes you need time, but you can see things like a cue for me is when people speak I versus we.
Okay.
We want people that use the word we. Not I.
Okay.
Now, don't confuse that with the time to self-promote.
Promote yourself. That's
During
right.
self-promotion, it's I.
Yeah.
But those are very specific situations.
Yeah.
If you sit around a table with 8 or 10 people and somebody's saying I this, I that,
that's something.
You need to investigate.
Might want to pass.
You're right.
Might want to pass on that one.
Right.
One word that defines real allyship. One word.
Authenticity.
I like that. And what's a sign someone is not an ally?
If they're not willing to create opportunity for you, and that may be, for example, something as small as in a broad meeting, specifically creating a space for you to speak up. It may also be they're in a meeting that you're not present in, and they are using your name versus saying me and my team.
Right.
You know, the best compliments I would get were when somebody would come up to me and say, so-and-so said, you told me that you shared my idea.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
I don't need that credit
Right.
for it to be in my,
Yeah.
To be perceived as me all
Yeah.
the time.
That's good. Okay, last question for you, and then you're released from the allyship conversation.
Okay.
So this podcast is called Queenmaker, and it's definitely a space we've talked about. You know,
My
it's still
kids
so real.
love
We
it.
can't believe it. Like, it was just an idea a while ago. And it's just a space for women in leadership. But I would like to know, what is your definition of a Queenmaker?
It's a strong leader that promotes everybody, but specifically women. And when I say promotes, I don't mean like you get the next job, but is creating opportunities for that person to be seen. And at times pushing that person, saying, hey, there's an opportunity, grab it.
Right.
Or don't. That's your choice.
Yeah.
That creates opportunities for others to rise up. The most gratifying thing in my entire career is seeing people accomplish more, in particular women, just because the 4 examples I have, 3 are women, 2 are of color, accomplish more than I believe they thought they ever thought they could accomplish.
Yeah.
Those are my most proud memories.
And that's why you're on the allyship episode.
All right, I accept it.
That's right. So, Peter, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this. And I know people are going to learn some things from you. And
well, thank you.
I'm so grateful. I was grateful for our partnership for a long time, okay? I have the gray hair. I don't actually have gray hair to show it. But I learned a lot. And I appreciate you. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
My pleasure. I'm proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. To my allies out there, allyship is often talked about, but not always practiced. It shows up in how you use your awareness, what you choose to see, and what you no longer ignore. It shows up in how you use your influence, whose voice you amplify, whose name you carry into rooms they're not in. And it shows up in how you use your position, not to take up more space, but to create it. And with that comes responsibility. Responsibility to act, not just once, but consistently. Responsibility to speak, even when it's uncomfortable. And responsibility to be accountable for the environments you help create. And for the queens and the queens in the making, part of leadership is recognizing the difference between someone who wants to stand in front of you and someone who knows how to stand beside you. It's knowing who you can build with, who can hold space with you, and who understands your power without needing to control it. And when you find that, use it. Not by shrinking, not by stepping back, but by standing fully in your leadership. And be on the lookout for your ally, because he or she might be standing right beside you, because that's what changes outcomes, not just for you, but for every space you walk into. So this isn't just a conversation about allyship. It's about how we choose to lead, how we choose to partner, and what we choose to build together. As we close today, I invite you to sit with what stirred, not to rush into action, but to honor the insight that found you. Leadership isn't about doing more. It's about listening deeper, choosing wisely, and trusting your own knowing. If this conversation resonated, please like this episode and subscribe here on YouTube. It's how this space continues to grow and how more women find their way here. And if you'd like to stay connected between episodes, you can follow me on Instagram at Live Well Heal, where I share reflections and behind the scenes moments. You can also explore more at livewellheal.com when you're ready. Until next time, remember, I see you, and every crown is earned.